Call it to order. All right, this is the April 22nd Harbor Management Commission meeting starting at 6:01, calling it to order. I'm going to take a roll call. So let's see, we're going to take, I'm here, Jeff Mangles, Commissioner Kibbe,
Sure.
Commissioner McDonald. I see that you're here. Okay. Let's see, Commissioner Bloom.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Gifford.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Matt. And Commissioner Kirk Jin.
Present.
All right, love it. Let's see if I missed anybody. I see Steve, Owen, Justin. I think that's it for now, but we do have a quorum. We need 5. We have 6 of us. So, all right. Do we have any public participation? I see a hand is raised.
It looks like it. So if anybody would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. State your name, address, and the agenda item to which you will be speaking about. All right, Dan, you should be able to speak. You may have to unmute yourself, though.
Yes, good evening. I had to find I'm pulling over, I'm driving now. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, Gregory Boulevard in East Norwalk. I first of all wanted to thank the Harbor Commission for all the work they have done. There are some new members, some of whom I've met, and I welcome you. I was one of the first Harbor Commissioners that began the Harbor Commission planning back when William Collins was the mayor. So to keep that in mind, I took a look at the strategic plan, the 199-page document that Indigo River and HRA advisors had put together. There are some things that make me feel that this is not ready for prime time to go on to the council. I ask that you consider either just keeping it within your Harbor Management Commission on hold or vote no, and ask that if there be some revisions that took place and additions. By trade, I'm an environmental management consultant, once being a regulator with the Hazardous Waste Division of the DEP, now called DEEP. They added an E. One thing that I noted was not mentioned, and I think it should be part of a strategic harbor plan, is the fact, because you do have a land use portion. Land, of course, that borders our harbors is so important because not only the polluted runoff, but also the land use above it may or may not afford opportunities for marine-based activities. Of course, we have our boating community, rowing community, and that makes Norwalk so wonderful and a great place to live. However, I saw no mention, and again, I just got access to this 199-page plan. If all of you have not read every page or almost every page, I ask, what is the rush here? I did not have time to read everything, but I did pick up that allegedly there was mention that Indigo River met with the Water Quality Committee. Now, I was a member of the Water Quality Committee. To my knowledge, we have not met for at least 2 years. So that is one thing that makes me scratch my head. Mainly, I don't see any information about the known former manufacturing sites that line both sides of the upper harbor and also, of course, affect the lower harbor, meaning the Oyster Shell Park, which is our former landfill. And I think the absence of a chapter or a section on that, on brownfields, which is one category of contaminated property. It's not the only way the state and the federal government identifies contaminated property, but people throw around the phrase brownfields. It's not the only way to categorize things that affect the harbor, both the water quality, but also the boating and the activities. So I think without that being in this document, to my knowledge, now again, I couldn't find it. I looked. There is no, there is an index, but there was no, in the beginning, it doesn't list the different chapters and the divisions like most documents would. So that would be helpful too. I do like the fact that there are some interesting charts and data with street ends. I currently live on 2nd Street, but I noticed the 3rd Street seems as if it could become developed into a really wonderful little mini park. The city owns it. I wanted to know, did this consultant or did the staff include Jeff Stedman's information? Was he interviewed for this document? Because he has a wealth of knowledge. He was hired originally when I helped draft the original harbor management plan, he and his partner at the time. So he should be interviewed to at least look over this document and see if he can add things or subtract things. If that has not taken place, I say go back to the drawing board. I don't see any mention of ONG, which is in the upper harbor on the east side, yet the former Yankee Gas manufacturing plant on the west side of the upper harbor, Divine Brothers, and other Oyster Bend Marina, and of course Oyster Shell Park. So because I don't see these here, and I didn't see them in the SWOT analysis either, I think it's a weakness and a threat to our boating and harbor management mission that I've read. Lastly, the sewage treatment plant is an aging infrastructure system. I also don't see a lot of attention paid to that, but again, I did not look at every page of the 199 pages. And I'm a pretty active advocate in Norwalk. I don't recall hearing about community meetings taking place, or a lot of them. Now, I may have missed them, and I'm doing my homework now, but I do think maybe you need to go back to the drawing board, pay attention to the things I mentioned, and then consider having another public meeting to go over this document. I'm very happy we're updating a strategic plan, but it must include, if it's strategic, it has to include, in my professional opinion, and as a 40+ year member of Norwalk resident, it must include our former manufacturing legacy sites like the ones I mentioned. So I thank you for hearing me out. I hope that my comments are taken seriously, and I'd be happy to continue helping if anyone would like to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate your comments.
All right, we have another hand raised, and then for anyone else waiting, if you would like to speak, just use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And Linnell, you should be able to speak once you unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Linnell Jones. My address is 10 Point Road. My comments address the Indigo Blue Strategic Harbor Report, which is being presented as a POCD amendment referral. Not sure how anyone, job or no job, can digest 199 pages in under 24 hours. Yet even a quick read of this report shows it is not consistent with our current approved harbor management plan. Your responsibility to the public is to implement the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan. Unless you have carefully reviewed this report, our Harbor Management Plan, and the complete 2019 POCD, which includes in many sections the role and responsibilities of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission, any vote to approve this strategic harbor plan as an amendment to our current POCD would be irresponsible, negligent, incompetent, and likely illegal given city regulations, ethics, and state laws governing harbor commissions. What is clearly illegal, as the funds voted to be spent on title searches must come from mooring fees, is the action of using mooring fees to fund title searches. According to Connecticut General Statutes 22A to 113S, mooring fees collected by the harbor master must be deposited into a municipal fund specifically for the maintenance and improvement of the harbor for the public. This statute, part of Chapter 444A, which governs harbor management commissions, describes approved uses of mooring fees collected as being 1, maintenance and improvement of the harbor for the public, and 2, expenses for personnel and equipment directly related to the functions of the commission and the harbor master. This does not include title searches on land. That was the point of the Connecticut Port Authority grant dated July 2022. If you review the CPA grant application, which accurately quotes the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan, the purpose is clear and includes studying the feasibility of opening abandoned road ends in the inner harbor, specifically mentioning encumbrances. The Indigo Blue Strategic Harbor Plan ignores the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan. Suddenly, there is no more inner or outer harbor. According to this strategic report, it's now, quote, a harbor area, unquote. This aligns, if you read all 199 pages, with the ultimate suggestion to create, quote, strategic zones, unquote, within the, quote, harbor area. Large parts of the harbor were ignored, yet water quality and tides and water levels cannot be controlled by a strategic zone. The consultant failed to mention the strategic idea of a stormwater authority, despite hearing multiple concerns about water quality. Yet it is written that they engaged with the mayor's water quality committee twice. Really? Data used from sample cell phone data was pointed out in one steering committee meeting as being significantly incorrect. Yet the incorrect data remains in the report as evidence Norwalk is a major tourist destination. Engagement with whom? My 3 minutes are up, so no time to address dredging, moorings, sources of pollution, or lack of new ideas. As commissioners who supported Eagle Scouts, please remember the significance of the Eagle rank and your commitment to implement, not ignore, Norwalk's approved harbor management plan. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Linnell. Are there any other comments?
I don't see
Public
any
comments.
other hands raised at this time, and I did not receive any other comments in advance of the meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we have the next is the POCD amendment referral presentation. That's with the Strategic Harbor Plan. Do we have anybody from Indigo here?
We do, but I think we may have skipped over the approval of last month's minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Acceptance of minutes. Absolutely. Sorry about that. Acceptance of minutes. Has everyone read the minutes? And for the new commissioners, I don't expect you. You can not vote to accept because you are not part of those that meeting. But has everyone read? And are there any comments on the minutes? So I'll need a motion. If there's no comments, need a motion to accept the draft of the minutes.
Motion. I'll move that the meeting minutes from March 25th, 26 be accepted.
Thank you, Alan. Do we have a second?
Second, that, Jeff.
Is that you, Matt? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? We have 2 abstentions. Okay, very good. I'm a little out of sorts because I'm working from work. So sorry, everybody. I'm trying to get everything worked through here. Okay, now we have the POCD. So do we have anyone from Indigo?
Yes, hello. I don't know if,
Hi, Alex.
yeah, and
How are
Shay's
you?
here. Hello. Good, how are you?
Good. So you heard some comments,
Um,
some public comments?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Made a note of them.
Okay, good. Good, because I do believe that, they were worthwhile. And there's a lot of knowledge there. Okay. So you can continue on.
Okay, am I sharing my screen, or Amelia, do you have the presentation?
Oh, I can pull it up if you need. Or you also
Um,
have the ability to share your screen, whatever's easier.
okay, great. I'll just share my screen. Hey, are you all able to see this?
We can.
Great. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Alix. I'm here with Shay from Indigo River, and we're also joined by Erman from HRNA. And together we worked on the strategic harbor plan for Norwalk. And today we're going to share a brief overview of our latest findings on the harbor's existing conditions, including existing demographics, industry, and environmental conditions, followed by an industrial economic analysis, then our mooring analysis, then an overview of the street end study, and then finally an overview of funding strategies and recommendations. And with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Erman for the first portion.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And thank you for those comments. Really appreciate your deep reading of this large document. Can we go to the next slide? So that we actually are starting with the definition of the harbor area that I believe, Linnell, you mentioned. This is notably, it's not a designation that is being suggested. It isn't merely an analytical categorization. We needed to define a harbor area, and it is the 14 census blocks that are marked with the dark blue here in this map. And we use that to compare it against the city of Norwalk, the jurisdiction boundary of the city of Norwalk, and then the regional metropolitan statistical area. So this is a very typical method we use in demographic and economic analyses, and those 14 census blocks, 14 census block groups were collectively called the harbor area for the purpose of this analysis, not a suggested designation. And this was presented in earlier sessions of the Strategic Harbor Plan Committee, Steering Committee, and this was also aligned with the area that was defined in the Industrial Waterfront Land Use Plan. So there was some stakeholder approval process that we went through in the definition of this harbor area. We can keep going to the next 3 slides. One more. Yes, perfect. So I'll do a very quick. So as you saw, it's almost a 200-page report. There are a lot of sections. I'll mainly touch on the key takeaways on the earlier sections of the report, the demographic and industrial economic analyses, starting here with the demography-related takeaways. The analysis that we did, we saw in the past 10 years, and that period is defined for the purposes of this analysis, given the time when we did this, 2014 to 2023. We saw that populations and households have been growing faster in the harbor area than both in the city of Norwalk and the region. And the region here refers to that metropolitan statistical area we saw in the map at the beginning. And the harbor area, as I said, it's growing larger. Non-family households, which means singular adults, make up the largest share of the households in the harbor area, those 14 census block group area. So that's another trend we saw there. And new housing developments have been concentrated in this area as well, which is aligned with the growth that we're seeing. And the harbor area household incomes have been increasing faster, but they start from a lower baseline. and they're still lower than rest of the city. We can keep going because we have a lot to cover. Yes. So industrial economic analysis wise, Norwalk's economy has been shrinking. The city has experienced net job losses across almost all industries in the past 10 years. And here that refers to 2013 to 2022, almost 10% of all total jobs. And it's significant shrinkage in economic landscape. Only service and construction and real estate industries have increased throughout this period. However, these were citywide numbers. Harbor area economy has been growing as we saw. This does indicate to us that the harbor actually functions as a regional employment center. The jobs here, compared to the 10% job loss citywide, the harbor area jobs grew by almost 6% within that same period. And it's a counter trend to the citywide numbers. And the harbor area makes up almost 40% of all jobs in Norwalk. And it's the reason why we say we can call it a regional employment center is because 77% of the harbor area workers come from outside of Norwalk. And that's a significant inflow compared to what we see in other cities and the regions. And this will be tied, by the way, to workforce development in the next section that we discuss. There is also a flip side to this. There isn't the right amount of the workers with the right kind of trainings in the city of Norwalk, so that also requires businesses in the harbor area to look for workers elsewhere. 13% of all jobs in the city of Norwalk can be defined as water dependent, and that definition was also included in the larger report here. In the harbor area, that amount is slightly larger. We would have expected it to be a little bit larger, but it's close to 20% in the harbor area. Next slide, please. Yes, so the harbor area itself, there is also a lot of jobs in healthcare, social assistance, and education. We saw, like new hospital developments, social assistance organizations serving individuals and families, dentists, etc. And there are a lot of schools as well. These have been growing faster than other jobs in the harbor area itself. And that's one reason why we also see a lower percentage of water-dependent jobs in the harbor area based on what we would expect in other harbors in New England. There are a lot of blue-collar jobs as well, given the industrial heritage of the harbor area. They make up roughly 1/3 of these jobs in the harbor area. And then lastly, of the water-dependent industries, majority of these jobs are what we would call tourism and recreation activity. These are restaurants, travel arrangement services, and hotels, museums and historical sites, and other amusement recreation-related jobs. There are a lot of restaurants, and these jobs tend to be service sector jobs, so they're lower paying compared to other industries. And I think that's it for this section. So handing it over to you, Alex.
Yes, thank you. Just going to provide a quick overview of the environmental conditions that informed our recommendations down the line. Within the study area, we looked at a range of factors from navigation and ecology to public access and climate risks to understand both constraints and opportunities. We know that Norwalk Harbor is a working harbor with real physical constraints like channel depths and shoaling and congestion, which all affect how it functions. Dredging happens infrequently. Sediment buildup continues to limit access, especially for larger vessels. There are narrow passageways, wind conditions, and active shellfish beds, and these conditions are key drivers that eventually informed the mooring and management recommendations that we'll get into later. Shellfish is a major ecological and economic component of the harbor, with both managed and natural beds throughout. These areas create important constraints on where dredging, moorings, and other in-water activities can occur. So we took into account that any future planning has to balance access and use with protection of these resources. In terms of public access, so there are a number of public access points around the harbor, including parks, marinas, and trails, but we found that access is inconsistent and often somewhat unclear even to residents. Many street ends exist, but they're underutilized, blocked, or not well maintained. And this gap between potential and actual access is a major opportunity area, which we'll also discuss later. A lot of the harbor shoreline falls within FEMA flood zones, including areas with critical infrastructure and public assets. This creates, as we know, ongoing risk for both existing uses and future investments. It also means that any improvements need to be designed with resilience in mind. And I think this is the last one. Looking ahead, sea level rise will significantly increase flooding and inundation across key parts of the harbor. Low-lying areas like Half-Pasture Beach and the islands are especially vulnerable. Again, all of these are described in much more detail in the full report, but with that quick overview, I'll pass it back to Armand.
And yes, this is a little bit more detail on the industrial economic analysis, whose general takeaways I already went over. If we can keep going. So with the goal of this analysis was to demonstrate a more comprehensive overview of that water-dependent side of the economy. We looked at industrial trends over that 10-year period of time and tried to figure out the needs and challenges around the harbor. And these tie back to the management strategy that we'll get into in a second. And the methodology we used for that was, again, typical data analysis, what we use in economic analyses like these that are available by third parties. We benchmark with peer cities and regions. And also we conducted an industrial business focus group and city stakeholder engagements. So we'll actually cover the takeaways from that stakeholder engagement. The full analysis, again, is in the full document. But what we heard from the city staff was the things that will be not news to you. There are a lot of uses and interests competing and coexisting over the Norwalk Harbor. The three main drivers are real estate development for housing and other commercial uses, industrial entities, and tourism and recreation. So zoning and land use decisions have been informing how these uses have been taking land in and around the harbor. And you did the 2022 Industrial Waterfront Land Use Plan. And the land use approach so far has been to balance these uses and see how the different needs over these three categories compete with each other. And the Industrial Waterfront Land Use Plan does provide specific suggestions, but does not really set priorities around how the harbor as a whole can be used, what its role could be for the city's economic development future. That's typically something we would see in other cities and harbors along New England and elsewhere in the United States. And number three, there are governance fragmentation and infrastructure limitations posing barriers for the economic growth potential of the harbor area. Again, we can see in the numbers that the harbor economy has been growing, and this growth can also be enabled if the infrastructure needs were fulfilled, if there were no gaps, this growth could even be more ambitious. So we tried to point those out in the plan as well. And there are certain valuable parcels along the harbor that remain underutilized. They're used for things like parking and boat storage, etc. And the street end study and the mooring study get to some specific recommendations around those sites. Next slide, please. And we also had a focus group with business owners as well. And I believe we had 2 meetings with them. And the full list should be in the report as well of those who we spoke to. But what we heard from them was the harbor's water-dependent industry is essential to everyone, but it remains vulnerable. So we said there are 3 competing uses, right? Real estate, tourism and recreation, and industry. But the waterfront industries support real estate construction and support tourism and recreation. And if they were to go away, everybody loses. So that was one thing that was heard loud and clear in our meetings with the business focus groups. And then the industrial space of these legacy businesses are threatened by new development and other uses of the harbor. So that was another takeaway we heard. Condos, roving clubs, recreational development are making these businesses having to shrink across the harbor. And then the workforce issue was another big thing that we heard. These businesses on the water are having trouble finding workers that can fulfill the workforce need. So they're looking for skilled tradespeople, and they've been having trouble finding them and retaining them in or near Norwalk. There are certain programs like the institutions in Norwalk, like the Maritime Aquarium, have started, such as the Maritime Pathways program, but these were not really known by all the business entities in our focus groups. Yeah, we can keep going. And then this SWOT, by the way, was merely, again, focused on this industrial economic analysis side of things. It is not a SWOT analysis for the full report, unless that wasn't clear. So this SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, was a result of the economic analysis that us, HRNA, did. And strengths of this harbor, of the Norwalk Harbor, we saw there is a very impressive group of legacy businesses that have been long-standing here in the Norwalk Harbor, important for the harbor's character, for like the working waterfront character of the harbor in marine construction, aquaculture, and other industries. Deep water access is important. Dredging supports harbor-wide functionality for all uses across the harbor. But again, as we'll talk more about in the management strategy, it does, or in the threats, it does, as an activity, disrupts local harbor ecosystems and water quality. Opportunities for the Norwalk Harbor it happens to be a regional center for waterfront access. I don't believe in any part of the report we call it a major tourism center, but there are important anchors like the Sono Collection, the Maritime Aquarium, that do bring a lot of regional draw. That was very well documented. And the parks and waterfront of Norwalk do attract visitors from outside of Norwalk as well. So that analysis was referring to that. And it speaks to the potential of Norwalk as Norwalk Harbor as a regional draw. Workforce development and training opportunities are there. The connection needs to be made better with the employers. Manresa Island development is on the map. It offers an opportunity to increase public access to the harbor, so coordination with that development could be an opportunity. And then ensuring zoning aligns with the city's goals for the harbor and the coexistence of different uses is, again, one area of opportunity and collaboration. And over to the weaknesses, there is shrinking availability of land, as we discussed, lack of skilled workforce, limited housing affordability is an issue, and then aging infrastructure, as we talked about. And then threats remain the loss of industrial businesses, climate change impacts, and then, as we mentioned, dredging is an issue. And I think this is it for this side. So back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Ramon. I'm actually going to call on Shay for this
It's
section.
me. Yep. So, you can't do a harbor plan without a mooring plan. So we were asked to also update and look strategically at Norwalk Harbor's current and potential future harbor plan. And since we finished this, obviously Manresa Island has come out with their preliminary vision of what that's going to look like. So, in going through the slides here, I might stop and just modify one of my or two of my things here. So, but of course, we went into the harbor with everything that we needed to really look at. What we were looking for is what every mariner will know. We're looking for types of bottoms and permit areas that were restrictive. Are there areas that are shoaling that have dredging backlogs? Sort of getting an idea of the topography, and also what everybody's doing there. So, are they sailing? Are they boating? Some of it is AIS data, some of it is observation. So when we look at that study as a whole, what we're trying to determine and tell you is that there's going to be challenges to it, which we list right there. You've got congestion in the peak season. You've got a ton of shell fishing beds, which are extremely important. CTDE, as she said so appropriately, is added an E, and they have a lot of regulations here. But what we were also to look at and where we're tying in the moorings, Alix will talk about the street ends and the potential for access to the moorings as well as some form of inter-harbor public transport, which sort of goes towards a bigger strategic approach. So we see all of that together when we look at the mooring field plus the street ends, plus that becomes, the triangle that closes off the harbor there. So you can go to the next one, Alix. So, without getting in depth, we can give you much more research data, but went into water depth, bottom types, and the appropriate areas to moor. I had the luck or unfortunate of being a naval officer and a sailor and a racer, and I've slipped moorings in some of the best parts of the world. So we did take a good look at where the best spots would be here. But we also looked at where prevailing wind wave was and how climate changed. So we've done a lot of hind casting on the East Coast, and now we're doing more future casting to determine what these patterns will look like for prevailing wind and waves, because there is a slow pattern of change. So some of the norms that we've looked at since the 1900s will be changing in the next 30 years with sea level rise too, like prevailing wind directions are getting more muddled. And so, I said right here, we're always looking for good spots behind Plum Island, Calf Pasture, and in the lee of the Norwalk Islands, but there is a potential future condition. Alix, you can go next. And then we look at all this other normal stuff in terms of studies, data collection, density of boats, environmental regulations, what we think Norwalk's budget and maintenance capacity is going to be, whether you're willing to expand, whether you want to outsource it. The experts, instead of hiring the experts, you subcontract that out. Access everywhere. We talked about the street ends, amenities, and specifically pump out and keeping the harbor clean, those type of amenities. And anything else we'd need to worry about in terms of an expansion of a mooring field. Next. And so we took all that together and said, all right, that we're going to park that to the side for our model, and we looked at everything else. And we found really 5 spots that we really wanted to look harder at. So we took a deeper dive into the inner harbor, the Manresa Island, which is now everybody's studying, Gregory Point, Calf Pasture, and the Norwalk Islands. And we ran the first set of calculation. You can flip it to the next map. We ran the first set of studies in blue and presented that a year and a half ago, and we got some really great feedback in terms of where the actual shell beds were and where there would be better opportunities in the harbor. So this is actually the second iteration of of what we've improved here. So we looked at the Inner Harbor mooring plan with the potential in Area 1 right there. We did get some direct feedback that if they could fit and if we could work it with the Army Corps from a permitting standpoint, that would be a logical spot to put it. So we've added that to the study. Next one. These sites 9, 2, 4, and 3 and 4 also remained from our originals. We got some comments through the period of discussions about individual marinas and access to some of the sailing marinas and that with those 2 mooring fields close to the entrance to Spruce Swamp. And so I think there were some concerns that also that has become a de facto mooring field and that some moorings or some of the yacht clubs use that as private mooring area for transients. So we would have to just look at that a little clearer. Next slide. And then we went to the outer islands and round 1 was the light blue. And I failed to overlay the shellfishing beds over it. And it was pointed out to us in, I think, our first meeting. We fixed that. So we had preliminarily identified the 3 ones in blue by water depth and by historically where boats moored during the season. So if you look at the maps of year after year after year through historic aerials, these areas where all the blue is where people congregate and they wound up anchoring. So our first round was don't try to buck the system, just make mooring areas where people have already been moored. And then of course that contradicts the leases. So we did correct that. And we came up with a little refinement to that for area 7, 6, and 8. 7 and 8 being tucked in inside the public areas, not in private leases, with relatively okay water depth and with some history of moorings being there. And more importantly, 6, where we see if Manresa is going to be a stepping stone to the harbor, and they have a small boat basin like they've got in their first round of designs, then the field number 6 becomes a true viable, approachable, reachable mooring field, and 5, 6 in that triangle also becomes a viable potential water taxi stop, which I think we have a slide a little bit later about. So you can go to the next. So, we reviewed all the, the state requirements, and I think the comments were received about using mooring fees for title searches and stuff and those type of things. And I think there must have been some sort of misunderstanding because the marine fees raised from that can only be used for the program, which is what we've actually presented in the mooring plan. So we looked at 3 options. It's either you do it as a permit-based system as you do now, $200 a max. You can make more. You can't charge more per mooring, but there are different services that you might be able to provide. 2 is convert the system to a city-managed harbor-wide mooring field. In other words, instead of allowing people to privately drop, that the city actually sets the mooring fields each year, they lease it out, and they do all the maintenance themselves, they totally internalize it. But they also then grow it into much bigger areas. Or 3, which would be a hybrid model where the city owns and maintains maybe the ones up by the park or in the area, and maybe there are alternate areas that would be privately owned or privately managed through a tender with the city. So we actually, through our conclusion, said Model 3 sort of leads towards a water taxi model where you have a private water taxi operator who could charge for fare and for the pilot boats to bring people to their moorings. We thought that in establishing a potential multimodal water taxi system, that could also finance his ability to maintain the mooring fields for you. And so we thought that, model number 3, where you get a water taxi as part of it, the RFP service the moorings, they would also have established water taxi stops, and then the city would maintain the transient moorings, the revenue from that, as well as the, obviously the tender for maintaining everything else. So we thought that the revenue that, and without going through deep numbers, the next couple of slides, which were also in the report, just flip down. You can go. I'm sorry, go back up. I forgot one. So really what we looked at then is there's also, there wasn't a slide for it, but we looked at 4 different types of mooring, or 3 different types of moorings. A single point mooring, which goes in a big circle, a double point mooring, which kind of goes in a ellipse, and a dock mounted double point mooring, which is like what you'll see over in some spots in New York in the Sound. This is at the bottom where we thought the space was available, what you could potentially bring in total of number of moorings that you could potentially add, 333, with a good number of transient, which you can charge more for. So we thought that there was space available in those areas identified without being in shellfish beds to do this. The question then is, which then you can flip to the next slides, is you've got installation costs for all those, and option 1, the cheapest, and option 3 being the way most expensive. Option 2 gets you most of the space you need, and option 1 costs a little less, but you don't get the density. So there's a question within the harbor as to you want, and sorry, before I run away, Mr. Lee, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, it's not about this. I just had some questions. Once you conclude,
Okay, all right. Sorry, yeah. I'm just used to responding to the hand, sorry. So what we're looking at here is what we think your annual costs and adding mooring costs are going to be, and they're not insignificant. So there is a balance between wanting to expand the mooring field and knowing that the infrastructure needed to do that is actually more costly than it used to be. Next one down. And so we ran a regular model for you to determine as if this was a private marina running, what your costs of goods and services. We ran the model, figure out each year, skip down. Next one. Yep. We figured out the general revenue for each, which if you look at the bottom line, the generated revenue for these, even if I'm 50% wrong or 100% wrong, is still fairly negligible compared to the effort that would need to be put into this. We're not saying that mooring fields are wrong or that they're, that you don't need more moorings. I've just never known, and we've generally never recommended moorings to be revenue generating. They're an absolute convenience for bringing people into downtown. We looked at the non-economic drive of adding more moorings here. Obviously, Ermin, when he talks about other things at the back end of the presentation, he'll talk about the economic drive to what we're talking about of 333 added moorings in the harbor. And so, one more down, Elise. And, about $1,000 a mooring a year is a expected annual cost, which is probably going to be subsidized based upon our conclusions if you wanted to expand each mooring. And last one. And then this was just the last thought, is that once you start talking about the water taxi system and uniting all those pieces, then you also have a bayman who's running a business potentially that would love to have more business in terms of the maintenance of the mooring fields. You would have the boats and the boat captains and potentially generate a small business, marine business there, which is, the intent of an economic development plan is. I think if you connect those together, I think it'll bring more people into the moorings. So I think it's self-generating in a loop right there. And it's a way that the city could potentially put out a great local RFP for a local operator to sort of build this Norwalk network, sort of. So, and I think that's the end of mine.
That is the end of the section. Thanks, Shay. I'm wondering if we should have questions now or wait until the end.
Amelia, I'm going to forget.
Feel free to ask your question now.
If there's
Autumn,
any
that's
questions,
fine.
ask your questions now. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So I saw a slide that had Area 8 marked as a mooring field. Can we go back to that? that's possible.
8 as
Yeah.
potentially spot to moor.
So that's a passageway.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Ah,
a heavily used passageway. I actually only use that passageway.
okay, that's good. Then we can take that off the list. Sorry. Yeah, that's good local knowledge.
Um,
Well, there's a couple.
there's a couple, but that's the most egregious, I would say, at least from what I saw. There was a slideshow that showed future water rises. Do we know what year those tidal rises are from? I think it was like 10 prior.
Oh,
Elite,
yeah. I believe that was up to 2050.
250.
Yeah,
Understood.
correct.
Okay. And have you guys gone out with any of the commissioners to see it firsthand?
yeah, we had Annie, Alexa, Annie and you went out, or Annie and Dina went out. Yes, we had 2 people go with the commissioners, and they took a tour around the harbor.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
If there are no other questions, I'll just skip ahead and launch into the street end study. And then we can take another pause there if we want. For street ends, there we go. We initially identified and mapped 21 street end locations across the harbor and found that access is often inconsistent. Many sites are pretty underutilized, difficult to locate, or limited by environmental constraints and maintenance challenges. And conditions vary pretty widely, but common issues include unclear public access, a lack of signage or amenities, sensitivity to wetlands, flooding, and then just adjacent uses. And the objective of this study was threefold: to prioritize improvements that expand equitable access, 2, to support low impact recreational use, and 3, and enhance shoreline resilience, and 3, to work within really site specific constraints and community context. So we also had a selection criteria for priority street ends. We evaluated all 21 sites based on a combination of feasibility, public benefit, and ecological opportunity. And priority was given to locations with clear public ownership, the ability to improve access, and proximity to communities with otherwise limited shoreline access. We also considered environmental sensitivity, flood risk, and how each site could support low impact recreation without significant disruption. And conditions, as I mentioned, across the street and sites really vary, but a few consistent themes tended to emerge. So limited visibility and signage, uneven maintenance, and constrained or informal access to the water. Many sites are also shaped by environmental factors like the presence of wetlands and tidal conditions and flood zones, which limit how they can be used. Overall, these patterns informed how we prioritize sites and tailored recommendations to balance access, safety, and ecological sensitivity. So we looked at, and I'll just skim through this, but physical access and visibility, tidal wetlands, critical habitat, shoreline condition and erosion, zoning and legal status, along with social vulnerability and a few other things I'm not including here. But and based on this research, we identified 5 priority sites, which you're seeing here: Lowndes Avenue, North Street, First Street, Third Street, and Cove Avenue. And I'll go into a little bit more detail here. Lowndes Avenue, so this site presents an opportunity to expand access in an underserved area while improving shoreline conditions. The site is pretty constrained by wetlands, and so it requires a low impact, nature-based approach we recommend a focus on restoration, creating a kind of small overlook, and generally improved pedestrian access. For North Streets, this was one of the strongest access opportunities with good space and water depth, which presents the potential for a small boat launch structure with supporting amenities. It could also be an opportunity for community programming and local partnerships. Moving on to First Streets. This is a more passive ecological site with strong potential for habitat restoration and perhaps educational use. It's more suitable for what we call overlook and interpretive elements rather than active boating. And we recommend focusing on improving access while preserving environmental conditions. Next one is Third Street. This one is a good candidate for kayak and small crafts access with direct connection to the harbor. This holds an opportunity to support recreational use with simple infrastructure like seating, ADA access, and signage, which could also the signage could highlight working waterfront and harbor history. And then last one, Cove Avenue. This one is more on a neighborhood scale, and it has the potential for a low impact kayak or car top launch. The site conditions here do require careful design due to existing wetlands. And our recommendation here is to focus on creating a small, accessible and community-friendly waterfront access point with no hard surfaces, maybe some low-profile signage and seating, but no paving. Moving on to just general recommendations for all street ends. These all fall under public access infrastructure, ecological health, and educational and cultural elements. From an access standpoint, that includes just confirming public right-of-way and clearly marking these spaces, along with ADA compliant pathways, seating, lighting, and basic amenities like bike racks and signage. We also just broadly recommend looking at opportunities for low impact recreation where site conditions allow, emphasizing living shorelines, native plantings, managing invasive species, implementing best stormwater management practices where possible, and finally incorporating educational signage, community engagement opportunities, and harbor-specific wayfinding throughout. Again, all of this is much more detailed in the report. And I think this section is on back to Arman.
Thank you, Alex. So this will cover the harbor we can keep going. Yes, so this will cover the management strategy. As part of this scope, we also did an overview of the 2009 Harbor Management Plan and looked at possible models that could be considered for the management of the harbor. I think it is important to note that this section and the work we did here is not it's not recommending certain things. It is mostly diagnostic, and it provides an overview of alternative models of harbor management. So that's the goal here with the study, clarifying today's landscape. How are things happening right now? What are they in statute and how are they turning out in practice? And with that, the goal again is to diagnose challenges and seams. And with seams, what we mean is, are there gaps or overlaps in the roles and responsibilities that you would expect to be covered effectively in a strong harbor management entity? So that's what we did in step 2. And then step 3 is, once we identify the challenges related to the functioning of the harbor and the roles and responsibilities, what are the possible future pathways? So we then provide a spectrum of governance models as part of that. And then the methodology that we use for this is we reviewed the 2009 Harbor Management Plan to look at, again, how are things written down in statute and in the approved plan. And we used a 2021 Industrial Waterfront Stakeholder Notes. There was very well documented stakeholder meetings with a variety of stakeholders. Such deep engagement wasn't part of our scope, so we leveraged those notes as well as the limited engagement we did as part of our focus groups. And then we, using this information, we mapped current roles with the statutory limits, and we did that across key management functions the typical management functions you would expect from a harbor entity. And we benchmarked this against peer models and best practices. That's where the possible models come from. And while we were gathering those different models, we tried to focus on New England. What are other places in New England doing? So next slide, please. And the first starting point for us was mapping the stakeholders. So we looked at the full list of public, private, and civic stakeholders that play key roles in the management of the Norwalk Harbor. And this page, and then the next page includes that full list. It starts with the Harbor Management Commission, the Harbor Master, the Mayor, and the Council, Planning and Zoning, Zoning Commission, the Department of Economic and Community Development, as well as the Norwalk Redevelopment Authority, Public Works, the Water Pollution Control Authority, Parks and Recreation. Next slide, please. The Police, Marine Unit and Fire, the Shellfish Commission, the state's Deep and the Army Corps, the state's Port Authority, and then these were the public entities. Onto the private marinas, clubs and boatyards, the industrial businesses, the NGOs, like the Maritime Aquarium, or the nonprofit educational entities, or the Harbor Watch, and then the utilities. So we looked at these different entities. They all have different roles, different items that they are responsible for across the harbor. And then in the next slide, we mapped, again, like the full set of roles and responsibilities that need to take place for an effective harbor management. We categorize them across these 10 operational categories. So policy and governance, operations, maintenance and security, enforcement and on-water operations, dredging and sediment management, water quality and resilience, land ownership and acquisition, real estate development, revenue management, funding and financing, recreation and public access, and marketing and visitor services. So these are the 10 categories that we used to assess, in the next slide, how are things taking place now? How are the roles and responsibilities laid out in the 2009 Harbor Management Plan? And then, so like this is, we're not going to read all of this, but this slide and then the next slide summarizes current state of roles and responsibilities. And then in the following slide, we use that summary of current roles and responsibilities to identify what seems to be the challenges. And this again comes from what we also saw in the 2021 Industrial Waterfront Land Use Plan stakeholder engagement notes. They had a lot of very valuable input in terms of how things are happening in practice. So we compared that with the statutory structure that was outlined in the Harbor Management Plan. So using those 10 categories of operational activities, we summarize the challenges here. Under policy and governance, we saw permitting handoffs don't seem to be clear. There are a lot of entities that applicants have to navigate. There are unclear tracking of data collection, and data tracking is unclear, and key performance indicators, which is again typical for harbor management, it's unclear again who owns them, who manages them, who tracks them. Operations, maintenance, and security. There could be standard operating procedures for public waterfront facilities. We weren't able to find formalized playbooks or checklists. Private-public interfaces, that was, I think, something that came from the Street End study. There are liability and security concerns with public circulation and coordination with private marinas and boatyards. In terms of enforcement, again, on water operations, there were some, I guess, some agencies noted that accountability is unclear and there's no unified patrol event incident command. That was something we saw in the notes. Dredging and sediment management, coordination and funding for them can be more, again, unified. There seems to be missed opportunities at federal cycles and state cycles with funding requests for dredging and sediment management, and then the permitting. The lack of a shared schedule seems to be disrupting certain activities that happen in the harbor. And then on the resilience and water quality, so this was one area I think where we are touching upon water quality. Again, this comes from mainly the 2021 industrial land use stakeholder engagement. That there was a note of illicit discharge and hypoxia, and then there are capital needs around the treatment plant. One, I think, overarching observation here was the need for a unified capital program would actually help identify capital needs and then plan for them. And that also ties to the funding strategy around capital needs. Next slide, please. Under land ownership and one back. Thank you. Land ownership and acquisition. There are certain key parcels that are owned by utilities and industrial entities. The rail, has or provides certain limitations. The rights of way, I think that was a topic of the Street End study as well. So there's a lot of entities who own different pieces of land and rights of ways that coordination becomes more important in those situations. On the real estate development, that is, again, that could be one role and responsibility that a harbor management entity could own. And again, the challenges here are tied to what we just discussed under number 6. Revenue management and funding and financing. Revenue is limited. Mooring fees are capped by state statute, as Shay noted. The revenues from visitors are quite modest. The harbor revenues aren't ring-fenced. Like they come from the city budget if you want to do a capital investment. This is limiting, if you need proactive maintenance, capital investment plans, they need to come from the city processes. Certain other models are able to, establish themselves as independent entities and have their own budgets, or better coordination with the city processes could also allow advanced planning for both capital investment plans and operational planning. Recreation and public access. Again, we talked about this a little bit with Street Ends. Access routing and liability issues were observed, and then wayfinding and amenities. We, I think, saw in the notes, and I think our group observed that when they were there, these are inconsistent. And then in terms of marketing and visitor services, this is another important consideration for operating a harbor. There seems to be, there could be a bigger opportunity here with a unified harbor identity and branding for visitor information. And then there seem to be gaps in visitor services. Next slide, please. And this is an overview of the models that we looked at. And then in the report, you will see a detailed assessment again for each model across those 10 operational categories. What would that imply for which stakeholder to take on what kinds of roles? So those are in the next 2 slides. We're not going to get into that. I'm just going to summarize here the different models we looked at. And again, these are not recommendations. These are just to show the different options of models. And these different models address the challenges that we've outlined in different ways. So the first option could be to tighten the status quo, keeping the current structure, but codifying it certain things through memorandums of understandings so that you address the most urgent challenges with a bit more structured approach. And you can set work plans, key performance standards, or standard operating principles for the challenges that you might deem most important to address now. And it could solve, things like, again, these are just examples, like permitting handoffs, data management, coordination, and trying to coordinate events in a way that you are able to be more proactive with looking for new funding, the dredging schedules, etc. And this one wouldn't require new capacity. It would have to rely on voluntary follow-through. But it is something that can be done with relatively low lift. Option B is a city-run harbor program. In some examples, there are, as you also know, in other harbors you may use, there are city-run harbors. And this one would be like a municipal harbor office for waterside operations, border services, and dredging and grant coordination, as well as data management. So this would be more enforcement presence would be higher here. It would be more centrally managed, but this would require new capacity, equipment, and budget from the city side. And there would be overlap most likely with existing stakeholders. Option C would be a strengthened Harbor Management Commission and operating agreements on the city side. So Harbor Management Commission would stay as the policy lead. The City Council could approve operating agreements, assign tasks, have standard operating procedures, timelines, etc. So this is basically but stronger enforcement. This is also a model that we see. I believe Stamford does this one quite a bit. Harbor Port Authority, that's again a bit more involved. You set up a new organization. It's quasi-public. It has ability to own and operate assets, collects leases and fees, etc. So this is not, I think the state legislature is limiting when it comes to this sort of model, but we're presenting here so you can see the differences in what different management models enable. But this would again solve many of the challenges that we saw through a dedicated entity and dedicated funding. And option E, that's actually not a separate option. That is usually used as a supplement with any of the other 4 options for landside management. Like Baltimore has a nonprofit conservancy, Seattle has it, Manresa Island can now be considered a nonprofit conservancy, Manresa Island Corporation. But the point of them is public access and activation, like a standardization of the landside operations when it comes to access and activation. And that also comes with the fact that they are responsible for finding the funding and also be in charge of things like branding, visitors, the last 2 of the operational categories that we highlighted. So this was a lot to take in. I think it is better if it's digested as like the document that we provided. But I'm happy to take questions as well. And I see Mr. Lee's hand raised.
Yeah, I just have one question. I saw a slide and heard that you said that there was a non-unified command, does that mean public safety?
Sorry, can we go back maybe? Unified command?
Yeah, you specifically said unified command.
Yeah, so he wasn't referring to
It
police or
wasn't
public safety.
Yeah,
He
it
was
wasn't public safety.
he was talking about, like a port commission that covers everything on the harbor.
I think it was related to dredging.
Yes, that's
yeah.
specifically what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Understood.
Ramon, just double checking. Are you done with your presentation? Should
Yes,
we open it up for questions? Okay.
So the remaining two slides are what would the roles and responsibilities look like across these 5 models. So it is a very high level summary of that. I don't think it's worth going over right now, but it's there in case you want to consider these different models.
Yeah. So, Alix, is that it?
Yes,
Okay.
that concludes our presentation. So we can open it up to questions, comments, anything else.
Does any commissioner have any comment?
Sure. This is a great deal to digest in one sitting. I think it's terrific work that's been done, and a lot of really for Norwalk outside the box kind of thinking, which I think is what we need to have different perspectives and the suggestion of even different modes of operation to ponder and to consider. So I really appreciate this as I think a really good stimulation for us for doing some self-examination and either maintaining an enhanced status quo or moving forward in a different manner. So I think this is very, very, very stimulating for me. So thank you.
Anyone else have a comment?
May I just respond to his comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We appreciate that comment for multiple reasons. Is not that we're looking to disrespect the status quo in the harbor or what folks in the harbor are doing, but we do need to let people know out there that there are different ways of doing things, and understanding that we're going to have questions and we're willing to answer additional public questions. And what I wanted to say before everyone moving on, based on the comments from the 2 members of the public, Linda and the other one, obviously we'll take those seriously and respond to them in kind. The comments are not misplaced, as the general harbor is talking about, but understood. So apologies. I just wanted to say thank you for that comment, and we are listening to that.
Okay. Steve Kleppen.
Thank you. I wanted to just touch on a few things that were brought up and questions asked. So this plan is not the typical land use plan. There were several references made to the industrial waterfront study, which really focused in on what are we going to do on the landward side. And we spent last 4 years looking at in some places in Norwalk, a parcel by parcel basis on land use and what we think is more appropriate going forward with the city. So this plan really is not that plan. So some things that were alluded to about why they weren't included or should be included really wasn't the scope or purpose of this plan. The reason there's an action before you is I think, so technically the city could just have done the plan and used it or accepted it. This provides a more formal way of designating it as part of the city's longer range planning. And I think it also strengthens the city's position going forward, trying to get additional funding for a lot of these measures. So, for example, you'll see a lot of things on here that, there's not like things you're going to jump right into and do. It's like, okay, this requires us to bring in another consultant to look at the street ends, for example, more closely, or we have to study these potential mooring fields more closely, or the last stuff that Erman was going over in terms of the management and structure of how you govern the harbor. That's a much bigger task. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. There's a lot of policy decisions there. So this plan just kind of tees up future work and future endeavors. And I think, as Shay just accurately referenced, it's kind of giving you some different things to think about and some different models that are done elsewhere. A couple other things to address specifically. Ms. Jones had mentioned the mooring fees being used to fund the street ends. I don't believe that's the case at all, and perhaps Mr. Mangles can clarify, but I think at your last meeting, if it maybe perhaps the meeting before, you allocated funds to pay for the study of the, I shouldn't say the study, to pay for the title search work. I believe that came out of other funds, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was necessarily the mooring fees. I know the city does allocate funds annually, or had allocated funds annually to the Harbor Management Commission, and there was quite a hefty account balance there, and I think that's where we were deriving those funds from, but I believe you guys would know better than me, but I just think it's important to clarify that.
So we didn't need to know what she was talking about.
No, I think it's the question.
She had the comment about, well, that's what I'm asking. She had the comment about us suggesting that we were using mooring fees to pay for title searches, and that wasn't in the report.
That wasn't necessarily what you guys were doing. That's what the city is.
Okay. Then I was even sorry. That was even back on us. Okay, perfect. Our report is accurate. Yes.
Yeah, the city's starting to advance the idea of developing the street ends models a little further. But Corporation Council had suggested before we do that we make sure there's clear title to the land before we went down the road, which makes a lot of sense. And I think the goal was, all right, Harbor Management had extra funds that they had been allocated previously for other tasks and had not been using them, and that this is a good use of those funds. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. So
much better context. Thank you.
Yeah. If there, and again, if I know it's a big document, and if you haven't had a chance to fully digest it yet, and if you're not prepared to take action or want to defer it a month, that's fine. The next step for us is, I think, after months and months, and Leaks is probably ready to hang me at this point, is trying to set up a second meeting, which would be a joint meeting between the Planning and Zoning Commission and the ECD Committee of Council to kind of basically do the same presentation. That's been pushed back several times just because every time we get a date, one group can't make it. So I think we're close to a date now. That has to happen before the full council can take any action. So if you're, say, hey, we still have some questions or just want to think about things some more, don't feel pressured to take action tonight. But I do think overall that the intent of this plan is really to provide like a roadmap, a future work schedule for not only this commission, but also for the city as a whole, as they're thinking about operations of the harbor and potentially the structure of governing the harbor.
Thanks, Steve. Anything else?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Steve is correct. We were allocated funds, grants that they call them, from the city that we had not spent. And we also get revenue from the mooring fields and the transient moorings. So with the funds that we did not spend, we did allocate some of that money for other things that we never did. So Steve is correct that there was money left over, which is why we no longer receive grants. Some of the things that I noticed in the plan itself, there are some concerns about the mooring fields, as Mr. Lee had pointed out. He's also Deputy Harbor Master on the Marine Unit, so he's well aware of the shortfalls that you can have out in those extended or the outer harbor. I always call it the outer harbor area and then the inner harbor area, only because it makes it easier for to distinguish between the areas by the islands and the areas that are closer to land. So that's what I always say. And we also have the transient moorings, and the options are there. Do you want to be over by Sheffield Island, which is say further out, the outer harbor, or do you want to be in the inner harbor? So that's, we started making those terms only because it makes it easier for our visitors. Do you want to be further away, or do you want to be closer?
Mhm.
So we are doing things to better the harbor. I did read through the document, and some of the things are some aging infrastructure, but we are getting the new marina put in shortly. It's
Yep.
because of this horrible winter that we just had. We also have commissioned a dock builder to have a floating dock, which is not considered a mooring. It's considered a dock, so you can actually charge the going rate, whatever that might be. I believe that has that in Milford, but the report was very well done, in my opinion. There's a lot of information. There's two new commissioners here, Kelly Bloom and Danielle Kirkjian, who probably have not had an opportunity to review all 200 pages.
Yeah, I did a quick skim through, but definitely did not read it at the level of detail that I would want to be able to like fully approve something.
Exactly. There are some very good comments that were made by the attendees here, as well as some of the panelists. So I would prefer to defer any vote or any acknowledgement for at least a month before we do anything. Gives everyone a chance to, all the commissioners, a chance to go through it again. We can review this recording, and then we can give you some additional feedback.
Yeah, even if when you start the recording and you gave us just the first two sets of comments back, that would be enough to get us going.
No, absolutely, we can do that. Amelia,
Yeah,
can you
just
point
because I
them,
had it, I was writing as quick as I could and I couldn't get through all of them, but I also know that the second caller, and forgive me, I did not get the second caller's name.
That's Linnell Jones. Mhm.
She had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things on the end, so and that she didn't get to her after her 3 minutes or so. So I want to make sure that we just get 100% of what she wanted to say and make sure that we, go through the plan ourselves. And because a lot of it on the back end, if they didn't read necessarily the economic side of it, they might have missed some of that as well.
Okay. I saw Steve has his hand up.
Sure. Just one quick kind of request, and it goes to Mr. Lee's comment, because the specific things with the mooring fields, that's way out of our bailiwick. So anything in you're the experienced group here. So if there's specific comments on the mooring fields, the earlier you can get them to us, that would be helpful, because ultimately what will happen is if you guys say mooring field 8 and 5 are not workable for X, Y, and Z, that ultimately we take that out of the report. So we have to get back and make some edits down the road before we kind of wrap the process up.
Yeah,
Sure.
we've been asking for a very long time to get any sort of feedback on, and it's springtime, we're all trying to get our boats in the water.
Oh, absolutely. In the water.
I'm in.
Men,
Look, Harbor Master Lavallo, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up and mention about some of the moorings and moorings out in the outer harbor, like around Shimmons and Goose Island and Cops Island. Just so you know, I just can't drop moorings on grounds that a lot of the oyster industry owns. because they, or lease the bottoms of the area. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of moorings aren't placed around the islands.
Yeah, I
You
do
know,
understand, and that's
and
field 6 and 7. We tried to tap dance around.
yeah,
what
so
we-
that
yeah.
that's why I put some transients out by Sheffield because that
Mm-hmm.
draws an area because of the old lighthouse in the area, but just around some of the other islands, I just can't drop moorings because we don't own the bottom of the ground because of the oyster industry. And in the inner harbor, depth is a problem. I don't have at high tide. I may have 10 feet, but low tide, I have sailboats with 6-foot keels that are out, they're resting on the bottom. So just make note of that.
Yeah, realizing that one is a shoal draft or a flat bottom, that might be willing to do it Massachusetts style.
Just the past 2 weeks, I turned maybe 4 people away because I don't have room for a 7-foot keel.
Oh my, yeah, no, I had a 7-foot,
so
7.5 foot keel.
I just want to make note of it. That's all.
No, I used to, I raced a sound boat, 7.6, 7.5 keel.
And talking about Manresa on the east side of the Village Creek side,
yeah,
at mid tide or low tide, you can't get in there.
No, and when the race, when the Indian, when the race goes through the islands, I didn't go through the islands because I didn't trust it.
I can't put moorings in there because at low tide, it's 2 feet of water.
Yeah, no, I do hear you, and that's.
I just want to make note.
That's the type of thing that if there's an advance to the mooring study, a bit more detailed, it would literally go bathymetry, and we'd go out with the harbor master and really chart the areas, understand where seagrass is. There's a bunch more steps, but at least we've started the conversation for those areas.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Got it, Harbor Master Labalo, or?
Unfinished, Commissioner. Captain Kibbe.
Oh, I would just add to that this isn't going to happen overnight either. This is a roadmap that, adding a couple hundred moorings to this harbor is a kind of a long-term challenge in lots of ways about how we manage it, how we attract the people, and how even landside facilities develop and adjust to accommodate more vessels on moorings, because there's a whole landside thing there. So it's not going to be an instantaneous 300 more vessels in the harbor. We're going to have to, if we going this route, we're going to have to pick an area to develop, and we've lost a lot of mooring customers, I think, because of the bridge construction project, which will have to rebuild that in future years once the bridge is done. So this is, but it's great to have that roadmap of future potential mooring development areas. So I think it's entirely.
Yeah, and what it'll also do is it identifies areas that you've got on record for your harbor that says this is something we've studied and we think it's a potential. From the DEEP's standpoint. If this comes up again in 6 years, that you'd like some additional maintenance dredging in these areas that have new moorings or potential moorings, it won't be new to the record, so that the agencies will look back at it and it's not just a whim anymore. It's a thought out process for you.
Yeah, agreed. Does anyone else have any other comments?
I do. Just, and I don't keep us here any longer than we need to be. I just hope quite often we put something off for a month, and then a month later, the 3 days before the commission meeting, we start to get geared up for voting on something without having had any discussions. So I'm wondering if we should have a special meeting of the commissioners that want to go further with this. Somewhere between now and then, or to review we don't have to decide right this second, but I think that's something that we need to benchmark our time, so that we say in 2 weeks from now we're going to come together and talk about this, rather than waiting until a month from now?
Well, we shouldn't be waiting for a month from now. Everyone should be reading it. Everyone should have comments. If you want to send comments in through Amelia, of course, and then she can distribute them around, that'd be great. If a special meeting is required, then we could certainly do that in a couple of weeks. Once everyone has digested everything.
Yeah, my thinking would be about having an in-person meeting at City Hall, you know, around the table with the commissioners, just to stand up and look at the drawings and discuss things in a kind of open way. You can put it on TV if you want for the public. That wouldn't disturb me, but I think it's the kind of a presentation that it's hard to digest piecemeal, and I think it works better if people are just standing around the drawing board, if you will, looking at things and discussing them, and can all look at the same thing at the same time and point at the same thing. Now I'll be quiet.
Okay, that's noted. Anyone else with any other comments?
I would just agree with his recommendation as like a working session to review together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think it'll also be a good way to meet and integrate the new commission members, since that's a third of the membership now.
Okay, we could see if we could put that together and see who is available and when. Amelia can send something out, see who is available, and at what dates. I am not available through next week. I'm going to be here at a broadcaster, so it would have to be later on. But we'll sort that out, and we'll all get together and go ahead. It will be a meeting, so it'll have to be noticed to the public. But we can get that done. Does anybody else have any comments, concerns? Okay, at this time, if I believe we have an agreement that we'll defer this for a month and then give us a chance to review everything again and go ahead and meet and see what we can come up with. Are we all in agreement on that? So I'm making a motion that we defer this for a month.
I second that we table it. Yeah.
Second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey. Okay, very good.
Thanks for having
Indigo,
us
thank
again.
you all. It was very, very well done. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to the 9 Shorehaven Road. Do we have anyone from 9 Shorehaven Road? Oh, and I also want to acknowledge that John Wilkins came on board at approximately 6:30. Is that about right, John?
That's right. I'm kind of partially paying attention with my strep throat going on here.
Okay. All right. Do we have anyone from 9 Shorehaven Road?
It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just commissioners and harbor masters right now.
Okay, have we taken a look at 9 Shorehaven Road? That would be Chris or Alan or Matt.
I looked at it. It's an accessory dwelling, so a separate structure next to an existing house, elevated up above base flood elevation. They're adding a Coltech system to deal with the additional impervious surface. So yeah, that's the overview. just looked at it today.
Tried to look
Yeah,
at it today, and there's the link, the link didn't work, so it came up empty on that.
Yeah, I reviewed
Yeah.
some of the drawings. I had a couple of questions on it. So, was there anybody from that here to
There is
represent?
no one here. No.
Okay. I mean, I had some questions about proximity to the creek in the back and the estuary, and but yeah, to Chris's point, it's an accessory building that they're looking to put on an existing property off from an existing structure. So,
Right. There's a lot of questions there. The drawings weren't that clear for me. I don't know about
correct.
anyone else. So I'm going to make a motion to table that as well. Maybe
I'd second that.
maybe get the person, whoever's representing them, and it's tough to see, to go ahead and join. Maybe they were here earlier, but they're not anymore. So I made the motion. Matt, you seconded. All in favor? Okay. Gives new commissioners a chance to look through that too. Okay. That was that.
I did look at the architectural plans. I just had a question on, like, as this commission, are we approving like their permit, or what is our function in that? Is it because they're waterfront that we review, or?
So it's the proximity of the water and how they handle the, is impervious surfaces, how is it going to affect the sound, the water? Our job is not to approve a permit for construction. It's whether or not it meets the harbor management plan or not.
Okay.
So whether it does or not, we're going to find out. We have some questions as Commissioner Gifford pointed out, and McDonald. So we'll see if we can get them on board for next month. So Amelia, can you send out notice to them saying that they
Yep,
they
I'll
should
reach out to
attend?
the applicant, and then my colleague, another planner who is the staff member for that application. And then just for a little clarity as well, Danielle, the Harbor Management Commission is referred applications that go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who will approve or deny it. So it's not every single project that happens adjacent to the harbor. It's only commission level approvals. So it is usually bigger projects. It's frequently a coastal site plan review, which is under new zoning regulations as of 2024. Any work that's regulated by zoning that occurs within 50 feet of coastal resources now requires a coastal site plan review, which would then be referred to the Harbor Management Commission to find the proposal either consistent or inconsistent with the Harbor Management Plan. And if found consistent, it's, favorable for the applicant, and then Planning and Zoning Commission takes that into consideration, that it is consistent with the Harbor Management Plan. If you find it to be inconsistent with the Harbor Management Plan, then the Planning and Zoning Commission needs a supermajority, so they need 2/3 majority to approve that application. So that's a lot of technicalities, and if you have any questions, just.
No, but yeah, I appreciate the added clarity. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, reports. I think that's it for application review. So reports. So chairperson report. I don't have much to report on. We did go out to Grassy Island with a Boy Scout from Troop 222 in Norwalk. It was Deputy Harbor Master Lee, also Marine Unit Officer Lee, myself, the scout, his father, and the Eagle Scouts coordinator. So the point was to clean up Grassy Island. We did this last year with another scout who got his Eagle Scout ranking. That was for Shea Island that we did that. It cleaned up a whole bunch of mess that was out there. I was sort of floored about the condition of Grassy Island. It was absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. If I didn't see it for myself, I probably wouldn't have believed it, and I can't blame anyone else except for boaters that did that. It's nothing that washed on shore. There's some of that, of course, but this is at campsite 3. It's high and dry, so it's a monumental task to going to clean up the trash that's left behind. So I did reach out to Recreation and Parks today and asked if they wanted to come out to the meeting so that the island, so that they can have a meeting and see firsthand what it's like. So Robert Stowers said that he would want to go out there. So Ken, Robert, and Eric Montgomery will be heading out in a couple of weeks to the island. So we'll just take the harbor master boat again. And I don't know, Owen, if you're available, or Bruce, if you're available. We could take it, or I could take it. It's no big deal, but it's
Only if the weather's above 40 degrees.
yeah, okay. Who knows? But it's
Be dry.
it was pretty gross. So Amelia, you can come out as well if you want the day out.
I will definitely take you up on that offer.
Yeah, everybody needs a tetanus shot though. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, so what was the scenario, Jeff? What was it mostly just trash from events out there, or
Yeah, I mean, certainly seagulls weren't dropping it, that's for sure. It's bad. It's pretty bad.
It looks like a
Yeah.
homeless encampment, but
Yeah.
seagulls weren't dropping what
No.
inspired out there.
No. Tires and a a basketball backstop, that could have floated up, and then somebody thought that it was a good idea to bring it up and make a table out of it, and maybe. But there's also, Owen stated that that island had a house on it at one time. I didn't know that, or some type of a building, and there's this. I don't know. It's a well-like feature. That's all I could say. It looks like so, and I've seen it before. But it's just a collection of trash now in there. So
Collection of red Solo cups, Modelo's, Budweiser.
yeah, plastic,
Plastic.
glass, anything that you can imagine is out there. So it's widespread through the island, mainly campsite 3, which is high and dry, so, as I said, so has not washed up. There's some of that, as mentioned, but as I said in my email, that I would like to close the island for the season, just to make a point, but that's not going to happen. So we will be going out there. If other commissioners want to join, we can set a date and go out. I don't know how many people, I think 7 or so, 8 maybe, or 9, that boat is allowed to take on.
Yeah, I think it's plated for about 8.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yep. Okay.
Are we gonna get? Are the Modelo bottles returnable?
If you want to try, you can.
Well, I'm just saying, we could fund the whole place with that,
You might be able to,
You might
especially
be
now that it's 10 cents. Okay. So that's my report. Let's see. Shellfish Commission. I don't see anybody from the Shellfish Commission here. Harbor Master.
Email about, or I think, yeah, Steve had
Sorry.
emailed just past 6 saying that he wouldn't be able to join tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amelia. Harbor Master Lavallo or Deputy Harbor Master Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Busy couple weeks. Last month we talked about I had to go out and research to see if I had to move a couple moorings in the East Basin for the work barge for the new city docks. I went out, identified them, notified the owners that I had to move the moorings, which was no problem. Chris, I didn't have to move yours, so you're safe. And then
There, thanks.
I went out again with one of the mooring inspectors of Edwards Marine, and we through the past couple of seasons, some of our Yelp reviews was people thought that the moorings were kind of close together out by the Bug Light by the East Channel. So we went out and I moved a couple of private moorings and we spread out the transit moorings. So I don't think that's going to be an issue going forward. I'm meeting, well, I was going to do it this week, but the weather's been not cooperating. So next week I'm meeting with Norm Edwards again and keep identifying some of the moorings, because like I said, I send out emails to the mooring holders just to remind them to put their name on the moorings, which it's helpful. And I'm looking forward to work with Commissioner Wilkins to try to organize so we know who's who. I talked to Norm Edwards of Edwards Marine. The dock for the transient dock is beginning to be built, and we're going to have that hopefully in place by the Memorial Day weekend. Let's see what else. That's about it. Owen, Deputy Chief or Harbor Commissioner Owen.
Soon to be Deputy Chief. Who knows?
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be nice. No, I'm all set. The only thing that I have to say is that Grassy Island needs some love.
Yeah, it does.
You know, I had never realized that it was up to the harbor master's responsibility to check the campsites. I reading the harbor management plan again, I noticed that falls under the harbor master. So I'm just going to have to step up my game. And again, I think Chairman Mangles, and we talked to Mr. Stowers and Ken, because they don't issue permits anymore for camping. And I think that's a mistake, because I think people should be accountable and we should know who's out there. Just for an emergency, the Marine Police, someone calls on the radio, we don't know, or they don't know who's out there. And I think, again, I'm going to have to step up my game, and I'm going to have to go out there and do spot checks. So I think I'm going to fall on the sword. That's my responsibility, and I will up my game a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about that, because we expect people to
police themselves.
Police themselves and clean up after themselves. It is Earth Day today, but
yeah, but no, if people know that there's going to be spot checks, I think that's I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we can't blame the campers. People tend to go up to campsite 3 because it's higher up and it's sort of elevated over there, and it's and it's okay. So it could be just day boaters that are doing it as well, and that we don't have any control over, right? Who lands on that island, unless of course you're floating around or the Marine unit's floating around. And just taking a look around, but yeah,
we own a drone, right?
Yeah,
we do.
The proximity to that is a little difficult, though.
Okay.
I've tried to stretch it. I would have to go to Cove or maybe to Calf Pasture Beach to make a run there. It's a little far. But Jeff, I don't know if you want to touch on the boat.
The boat. Why don't you touch on the boat, Owen?
The Munson Marine 23-foot harbor master vessel is in progress. They sent us schematics yesterday, and when they send you schematics, the boat is ready to be built, and it should be built within the next 2 to 3 months. Delivery date was October, but I don't think we will see the October date. I think it'll be before that. So that's where we are.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah, Owen.
Yeah,
Owen's done a lot of legwork on that, and I appreciate
yeah, that's all Owen. That's all Owen.
I just want to bring up one other thing I missed. We have 94 mooring holders signed up. 2 weeks ago, I sent out 50 notices that people need to pay for their mooring. And I'm in the process now of sending out some more notices that if their moorings aren't paid by May 1st, they're going to be subject for removal at their cost. And we had one mooring holder. Make a long story short, I went out in December. His boat was still on the mooring over by Vantage Point. I contacted him. He said he was going to get the boat off the mooring. I went back in January, and the boat was ice cubed. So I contacted the mooring holder. We had a little discussion. He didn't realize that the boat had to be taken out for the winter. So make a long story short, I did not renew his permit this year. And he agreed and apologized. So that's being taken care of. And I'm already going through my list of people that want a mooring, and I got 3 calls out. I'm still waiting for a call back for them, so I can fill that spot. That's the end of my report. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Regarding the vessel, the harbor master vessel, the new one, there should be some signaling devices, a blue light, a siren type of thing. That wasn't spec'd out, but it is important, and so Deputy Harbor Master Lee is going to look at what the cost is to add that by Munson. We don't want that aftermarket. We want it to be put in when it's being built, so that all the wires are fished correctly and it's not aftermarket. So Owen again is on that. So we'll probably be asking for money. All right, mooring and harbor safety. That would be you, John.
He's got strep throat. Can you signal?
Okay, we can come back to you, John. Finance. Chris. Looks like I lost connection.
You're still here, Jeff. We can hear
Oh,
you. See.
okay.
We still see you.
Okay. Chris,
Can hear
do
you.
you have finance?
I guess he's muted, Jeff.
He is muted. John, do you have mooring and harbor safety? Alan, do you have?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, now I can.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to get a headset plugged in.
Okay.
Yeah, just really brief. We have our first Aqua stay scheduled before our next meeting on May 22nd, and then we have that big 6-week stay that we accepted from August 15th to the 30th of September. Just going to be a little bit of a challenge to keep, I guess, eyes on it, make sure we stay with contact with the customer to make sure that they are not, just really absentee with it. And then lastly, briefly start a discussion with Deputy Harbor Master Lee about updating a master customer list for Harbor Management Commission purposes with the stakeholders. So I understand something like that kind of exists, and we're just going to look at parsing that a little bit. And if anybody else wants to join the committee, we'd be happy to have you. That's kind of it.
All right. Thanks, John. Chris, are you available for finance? Chris McDonald. Okay, Alan.
Hey,
Plans
sorry,
and recommendations. Oh, okay.
I was driving. I had to pull over and then find the screen and unmute myself. So just to say that I have nothing to update on finance.
All right.
And I was listening earlier when we were describing, the budget, and we only have one pot of money, but there is, probably a third or a quarter of our operating budget is from city grants. So
Correct.
it's not, we're not just pulling. If we wanted to be discreet with our money, we could say that. Someone, but I also think that the street end would fully fall under harbor, improving harbor access fully falls under the purview.
Yep,
I think that would be funded by what I think that would be a proper use of the funds, regardless of which pot it comes out of.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. All right, plans and recommendations. Alan.
Yeah, I have one old piece of business that falls between you and I. It has to do with the health department and the money that gets withdrawn from our account, but I'm still working with the health department to determine what that really goes for. We used to pay, for those who don't know, there are water quality interns that work at the harbor. They work for the health department, and the Harbor Commission pays their salaries or their stipends. And it's money that just seems to be automatically withdrawn from our account, but they really aren't able to tell us exactly where it's going. So I'm just concerned that we get to the bottom of that. And we used to get, hour cards from those guys, and now we don't get much of anything other than money being taken out of our account. So we don't have any supervision of the harbor water quality interns, but we should know where our money is going from the commission. We haven't had, moving right along to plans and recommendations. We haven't had anyone in this position for a number of years, and so I'm happy to step in here with Chris to do this. I think that one of the things that happens with us is we have a lot of things we'd like to be working on, but we don't do a good job of keeping track of what our plans are. So I see a lot of this as being a sort of a clearinghouse for all the projects we want to do, and prioritizing how we spend our money and keeping the things, ideas for projects and things we should do as a commission moving along. So to that end, I would like you to all, I'll remind you all, but I'll reach out to me in the next couple of weeks about anything, projects you think that the Harbor Commission should be undertaking to improve boating or the harbor or commercial use of the harbor, or fishing in the harbor or anything at all. The things that I have that I already on my list, projects that need attention is the campsite improvement and development. That's something we just talked about, and that should continue, I think, but it's something we need to keep on our list of plans. The other is dredging. I think we're really behind on initiating a dredging project, so I think that we need to kickstart that. As our consultants just mentioned earlier, we're getting some very shallow spots, and it is impinging on the availability of areas for accommodating our moored vessels, both transient and seasonal. Rowing safety is a topic I think we should have on our list and maybe address if we have somebody interested to do that. I think we should talk more about that. because there are some, I think there are solutions to the kind of the conflicts of rollers being all over the federal channel. So that's another thought. And another is we started doing it last year in bits and pieces, but we may want to think about a revisions to the harbor management plan. That hasn't been done for a number of years, and periodically we look at the harbor management plan and say, is this current and up to date with what we're doing? Is it still make sense, or should we make changes to the plan? So we tend to do that every 5 years or so, and it hasn't been done, so that's another thing on the list. But other things you can think of that would be you think would be useful, send them my way, and I'll make a list. I'm going to send you a note and ask you, here's my list, and what can you add to it? We'll put that as a sort of our guidepost to show where we want to go with the activities that the commission undertakes as projects. So that's my report. I'm glad to be doing this. And welcome to the new commissioners.
Great. Thanks, Alan. Next on the list is newsletter and website. Well, we lost our person that was doing that. So we did have a commissioner, Chris White. He is set to resign his commission. His commission has been was up at the end of last year, and due to school and family life, he at this time it's not. He doesn't have time, which I could fully understand. Amelia did ask that he formally resign so that we can free up that spot. So if anybody knows for one more commissioner that they would like, let us know, or let the mayor know. And then we also have water quality. Water quality, we do not have a report on water quality. Water quality, we are waiting for the mayor to start that program again. Once they do, we'll have some type of representation on that water quality. New commissioner, Bloom, do you have any questions?
Not right now, but thank you.
I will.
Good answer.
I'm sure that you're going to have a lot. And Commissioner Kirkjian, do you have any comments, concerns?
Well, you're getting lots of practice with my last name today, so that's good. But on the water quality piece, is that something that we handle, or is it like you're saying it's from the mayor's office? So it was my understanding from like the commission's like charter that was something that we did, but how is like the responsibility shared for that?
So the mayor has to start that again, and it was stopped for some reason, not sure, by the former mayor. And then one of our commissioners actually is part of that water quality commission.
Okay.
So looks like you want to be on it.
I was just curious.
No.
But that's
I take that as a yes.
I have a lot of background in it from my undergrad work, and also at the Pittsburgh Aquarium. I was in charge of the water quality for all of our tanks, but never for like a river or a harbor.
Oh, she just volunteered.
You just volunteered. That is
Awesome.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's out there once a month. So, and they publish all of those reports if you ever want to look at them.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
We also, Jeff, so we should have somebody for the Shellfish Commission too. I don't know if you're going to do that, or if we have you're going to assign a representative, but that's another place where we might use someone as
we can assign a representative from here. I attended the last Shellfish Commission. It was a quick meeting. If anybody's interested in doing that on every Shellfish Commission meeting, that would be great. I don't know, Bloom, something about Bloom.
I feel like my last name is volunteering me for that position.
But think about it. If you want to do it, it's really not too much. We work hand in hand with the Shellfish Commission, so that if like we approve something, we always say if it's okay with the Shellfish Commission, like a dock type of thing. And Shellfish Commission usually goes out and does a site visit. You don't have to do that, but that is normally what happens. And they give it the blessing. It has to go through Shellfish anyway. So that's it.
I'm
So
happy to do it if you need that.
wow. Oh, there you go. So there you go.
Just
their
send me the
chairman-
details of where I need to be and when.
Sure. Sure.
Their chairperson runs a really tight meeting too. It goes very quickly and very organized, and it's just sort of zips right through. So
Yeah, Steve does.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? All right. It was a long one. Normally they're not this long, but that was a lot of information and a lot of good information from or good responses from the attendees that were here, Linnell and Diane. So, you know, as well as some of the people that are panelists. So, read, and then let's see if we can coordinate a meeting, a face-to-face meeting. That'd be good. And we'll see what we can do.
motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
There you go. All in favor?
Bye.
Okay, now I got to take a train.
Night, y'all.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a good
Night,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.